Everybody out there, thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Pursuit of Purpose podcast. I'm Rob.
I'm Chuck.
And today we have with us a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself.
So you can tell by the accent that I wasn't born in, Texas or Maine or anywhere, Minneapolis or anywhere like that. I grew up in London. First real pivot in my life is I had a 10th grade English teacher, Mr. Lund. I'm sure he had a first name, but we never knew his first name, or maybe his first name was Mr., thinking about it. Anyway, Mr. Lund said, see me after school, and I did. And he said, now listen, if you work about twice as hard and I help you, you could go to a really good university. And I said, Mr. Lund, I think that's ridiculous. No one in my family has ever been to college. And in fact, my dad left school at 14. So no, I don't think that's possible. And I remember he poked me in the chest. He said, this will be even better then because you'll be the first one. So I did what he said. I got myself a scholarship into Cambridge University. I came out of Cambridge and realized that there was absolutely no work available for anyone whose entire base of knowledge was medieval English literature. They were just not standing in a line outside the door saying, oh, thank God, someone who can speak middle English. Come one, come all. But I had met an American film producer, a guy called Tony Bushing, because I had been his interpreter, French, English, English, French, when he had made a big television commercial in Morocco and France. And he said to me, why don't you come back to LA with us? Why don't you come back to Los Angeles? You don't know anything about how we edit a film. And I said, well, would I get paid? And he said, yeah, we'll pay you. And I said, would it be enough that I would have somewhere to live? And I'm sure I have to get a car. And he said, yeah, actually, till you get on your feet, my family, we have a guest room. You're welcome. You come stay with us. And we even have an extra car. You can drive that.
Wow.
So that was my first example that there really is something extraordinary about America, which is the personal generosity, maybe not of everybody, but of many, many people. And, that was sort of when I came out to LA, that was day one of falling in love with America. And, I got a work permit. Eventually I got a green card. Eventually I went down and raised my right hand and became a citizen. And I've been here ever since. And it's a long time now. And I'm a great understander and reminder of the American dream, what's written on the base of the Statue of Liberty, because I think a lot of Americans have kind of forgotten what is exceptional about that. And it really is exceptional. And working on all those television commercials at the beginning of my career is fantastic because I learned America. Every week and a half, I'd be in some, here we are in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Oh, here I am in Chicago. Wow, Manhattan, and I filmed all over the place. And I learned the country and I met the people. Oh, here I am in the Chaco Canyon, Navajo Nation, working and so on and so forth. And that was the beginning of my American dream. So there's two sides to my life, one of which is I've made a heck of a lot of films. It's like well over 24 now. A few of them even okay. And some that we don't even talk about. And then in parallel, just by kind of fluke, I realized that the same toolkit that you use to stand up a film and make it and deliver it, can I tell this story before we make it? Because I've got to raise the money. I got to get a director. I've got to get a cast. And where are we going to make it? And where's the money going to come from? And who's distributing it? And did it work? Or did it find an audience and so forth? I realized you can take that same kind of Sears Roebuck Producers Toolkit laterally over into charity work. And I started one by one defining what I thought was a ridiculous, absurd injustice, and then doing something about it. Because one thing producers are good at is you just don't give up. You mustn't, because you're it. So, if the door's locked, you go around the back and climb in a window to the problem or whatever. And so the original one, I founded the Starlight Children's Foundation, which makes seriously ill children happy. And then I persuaded Steven Spielberg to be the chairman, which he's been ever since, chairman emeritus. And then I, after years and years of running that, I moved on as a volunteer and said, this is completely crazy. American foster kids don't go to college. And I knew what college had done for me. So I said, well, why don't they go to college? And it turned out, well, mostly it's because they're poorly educated and nobody told them that they should or could. So I founded First Star. You get the kind of the cadence of the children's rhyme: Starlight, Starbright, First Star, and on and on.
That's beautiful.
It is.
So First Star, I took myself off to UCLA, got a meeting with the chancellor of the university, kind of under false pretenses. I think he thought I'd donate money, and I didn't. But I said, let me start with the ask. I want you to let me pilot a program to house, educate, and encourage high school aged foster kids, a group of 30, one classroom full, from 9th grade through 12th grade, because I believe if we do that, we will get a high proportion of them into college, and certainly a whole heck of a lot more than the 6% of American foster kids who go to university without help. So bizarrely, madly, we kicked it around. I was in with him, 2 hours. And he said, okay, I think we should do it. He said, oh, where's the money going to come from? And I said, well, how about this? I think it will be straightforward, because I think it's an incredibly strong narrative of why this is valuable. And I said, why don't you have the green light button? If we don't raise the money, don't press the button. We won't do it. And he said, okay, done. And he shook my hand. And that began First Star, which is firststar.org. We now have 12 of these academies, each at a big university across the United States, and another 3 in the UK. And you heard me say 6% of American foster kids go to college. Our kids, after we have them for that 4-year period, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The most recent stat, here we are, it's almost June. So I actually know the stat across the country. It's 89%.
Wow.
Have been offered university places. So it's an enormous success. And of course, you can make 2 arguments. You can say, this is humanely valuable. Why would we throw lives away? Why wouldn't we help them be whatever they can be? Or you can say, it costs this country $80 billion a year to run the foster care system and pay for the awful consequences within 2 years of aging out of foster care. The kids are unhoused, unemployed, half of them unhoused, unemployed, dead, criminalized, in a gang, incarcerated, whatever. This is vastly less expensive than that and much happier. And it also is like ripples on a pond, because it will not just help them, but, their future children's children, and, save one life and you're saving many. So, I can go on and on. I've actually founded 7 nonprofits, 7 charities. And as my wife says, it's enough. Stop it.
And what's your answer to that? I bet it's never enough, is it?
No, it never, because I keep stumbling on these things where I think, well, that's not right, is it? I came out of a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and a guy came up to me sort of in rags and kind of smelly, and he kind of put his hand into my chest, palm up, and I, gave him $5, and I sort of went off at a fast walk and sat in the car, and I thought, why am I so angry? And I thought, I'm angry because I have a lot and he has zero. But why am I intimidated by him? So that didn't sit well with me. And I decided what I will do is I will interview homeless people. And I went out several weekends in a row on my bicycle, went and found a homeless person and said, hello, my name's Peter. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And what I basically asked them was, where do you sleep at night and how do you get money? And eventually I met an old lady. And when I said, where do you sleep at night? She took me by the sleeve onto the Caltrans, wasteland that's next to the freeway.
Yeah.
And behind a bush was this ginormous, damp, because it'd been raining, cardboard box with a piece of ratty blue tarp over it. And she said, this is where I am at night. And
Wow.
on the side of the box, it said Sub-Zero. And I thought, well, I'll be damned. I got the refrigerator and this lady lives in the cardboard box. What's wrong with this picture? So that became one of my nonprofits. EDAR, Everyone Deserves a Roof. In the daytime, you push it around and functionally it's like a big old Costco shopping cart. But at night, you park it, hopefully somewhere safe. You put the brakes on, you let the front down, you let the back down, and now you have a 7-foot long, raised off the ground cot inside an enclosure with 2 windows and a door. And that is the EDAR, because everyone deserves a roof. And
that's amazing.
That is.
So that's me. And there you go.
Well, that is a heck of a story. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it. I'm going to rewind a little bit, and we're going to go all the way back across the pond. And I'm curious, you were the first in your family to go to college. How many were there in your family? How many siblings?
I have 2 siblings. I'm the oldest. And, I have a zillion cousins. I think it's an average sized family. Okay. It just wasn't a family that did college or university. Mm-hmm. But the really interesting thing, and I use this in speeches all the time, is that after me, I think damn near everybody went to university.
You were the trailblazer.
Well, yeah, I think you and not necessarily by effort of mine, but I think families, young adults, sort of receive permission to aim high, or they don't receive permission to aim high. And when I started writing the book, Finding Happy, well, originally it was going to be 2 books. I was writing Finding Happy because I kind of developed pattern recognition. I've mentored so many young adults, teenagers and early 20s, hundreds at this point. And I realized there's like 24 things that always come up where I've worked out how to be helpful. So I thought, well, those are chapters in a book. And as an example, what is a good risk? What is a bad risk? How can you tell the difference? Not easy for young adults, especially young men, to work that out. But in parallel, I wanted to write a bit of an autobiography because I have worked with such truly bonkers people, but also genius people in making my films. And, the anecdotes around that, nobody would believe them, but they're true. And so I was writing these books. I thought I've got to discipline myself or I'll never get this done. So I started getting up and writing 5 days a week at 5 a.m. for 1 hour a day. And I alternated odd days and even days, Finding Happy, the book for teenage and young adults, the self-help book, kind of what I know now that I wish I knew when I was 18. And then on the alternate days, I was writing this kind of an anecdotal autobiography. And then a few months into the writing, I thought, it isn't 2 books, it's 1 book. Because what I can do is I can use the anecdotes, which are either very scary or very funny or just completely bonkers. I can use them to illustrate what the chapter is about in the book. So, for example, what is a good risk? What is a bad risk? How can you tell the difference? Well, my life, there are risks I should have taken that I didn't. I regret not taking them. There are ones that I did take. It worked out great. There are ones where I nearly killed myself. One of the ones I used in that chapter is I made a film called, now which one was it? Return of the Pink Panther. And so there I was. I had to pull an all-nighter in Marrakesh, Morocco, because I was behind on the accounting. And so I'm sitting there all on my own, at the desk, which is we converted hotel rooms in a hotel in Marrakesh called the Mamounia. So I'm sitting there and I'm on a high floor and I hear meowing like at 3 o'clock in the morning, meow, meow, meow. So I follow my ears. I go in the bathroom and it looks like a closet on the wall. But I open the double doors and it's not a closet, it's a pipe duct. And I look down and 5 or 6 floors below me, I see 2 little red eyes looking up at me. And there is indeed a kitten down there. So I thought, well, it smells bad and it's all greasy and disgusting and I'm not going in there. And I'm very sorry, kitten, but no. So I went back to my desk and I'm trying to focus on the accounts, but it wouldn't stop meowing. And eventually, exasperated, I go back in the bathroom. I strip naked and I shin down the biggest of the vertical pipes. And I got to the bottom and there was the kitten. And as I reached for the kitten, it ran away and I never saw it or heard it ever again. But I realized I've done an incredibly stupid thing here. I don't know how I'm going to get back up. So I started climbing up, but I was like climbing 10 feet and slipping back 8 feet and then climbing another 10 feet and slipping back another 8. And so I went back to the bottom and I had to think and I thought, well, I got to kind of wedge myself so I don't slip back. And it took me the better part of 2 hours. And as I tumbled into the bathroom and got in the shower and then got dressed and went and sat at my desk, the sun was coming up out the window and there's a knock on the door. And it was one of my electricians on the film. And he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here so early. I'm so sorry to bother you. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Do you mind if I go over my petty cash with you?" And I'm sitting there thinking, I just nearly died. I nearly died in a pipe in Marrakesh, Morocco. Oh, I didn't say. As I was trying to climb up, I thought, I'll shout for help. I have no modesty. I'll just shout for help. I shouted and shouted, but they apparently 150 years earlier, they built buildings really well in Morocco, at least that one, and nobody came. So I had to continue climbing very slowly.
Wow.
So I was able to use that as an example of no, the first thing if you're about to say, take some risk is ask yourself the question, could this kill me if it goes horribly wrong? If it might kill you, you should probably think twice about it. It would have to be unbelievably valuable if it works for you to risk your life. And I would even go so far as to say, never do that. Don't risk your life.
Well, I've got to tell you something. The whole time I'm listening to you tell this story, and then you say there was a knock at the door, I thought for all the world that your electrician was about to hand you a kitten. So,
but if we put the scene in a film, that might be the outcome.
yeah, that's a heck of a scene.
Real life, no. The kitten went
Right.
on to die somewhere in the labyrinth.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a powerful lesson that obviously it was able to help you probably mentor many others in your lessons about risk. If only there was a little less revealing picture of you as you climbed out of that hole, probably covered in filth.
It was filthy. It was, no one had ever been in there for 150 years. Just disgusting. And I do think it's an issue. It's one of many subjects that afflict young people in any age. You don't develop the part of your brain that is shrewd, the prefrontal cortex. It doesn't really develop in a young man until your mid-20s, your late 20s maybe. Girls get it earlier. They take less risks. But until you're 25 to 30 years old, if you're a young man, the front part of your brain doesn't work to allow you to play the chess game of life. If I do this, but then what if this happens? But what if that is triggered? And then what? And so on and so forth. Law of unintended consequences and how you work it out before you take the risk. You're operating as an adolescent, a teenager, a young adult on the back of your brain, the amygdala. And the amygdala is the kind of reptilian fight or flight thing. Do I stand and fight the tiger or do I run? Will it run faster than me? If the front of your brain is working, you say, oh, there's someone standing next to me. So I don't have to run faster than the tiger. I only have to run faster than him.
And if I trip him, I don't have to run at all. I can just step over a little bit and knock him down.
That wouldn't be cricket. That
We're not endorsing that, but
yeah. No, you got to have your ethics. So the book is it is honest to goodness what I know now that I wish I knew when I was 18, and it's divided by chapters, and it's based on decades of mentoring, and it's illustrated with these either very, very funny or completely ridiculous stories about terrible narcissistic actors or the odd director or people that I've worked with, or, just plain stupid things that I've done, clever things that I've done. And the goal is to allow and enable young people to be all that they can be, by sort of aiming high, but being also realistic. Like I say, okay, you want to be a famous film star? You want to be a concert pianist? You should have a plan B. Don't give up your dream. By no means should you give it up, but you have to have a plan B, because you have to, remember, these are foster kids I'm speaking to. You have to be able to put food on the table. You have to be able to pay the rent. So you can develop two things in parallel, one of which is your dream, and the other one is what you'll be actually perfectly happy to do if you have to, and you'll work it out. But don't take away choice from your future self. You should retain choice as long as possible. One of the reasons to go to college, if you can, is it gives you an extra 4 years to make up your mind what direction to move, and you can experiment. Maybe I'm not an engineer. Maybe I'm an architect. Oh, I guess I'm not an architect, but I really enjoy playing the guitar. You can move around in a university and experiment, and that's a rare privilege. And of course, one of the biggest challenges for foster kids is where to live, because the system kicks you out normally at age 18. But if you get into college, you have another 4 years in a dorm. So you won't be homeless, you won't be couch surfing, and you won't be sleeping on a park bench, will you? So it's not only for foster kids. That's just kind of where I cut my teeth in mentoring. I think it's for any young adult. And it's interesting, the publisher, Simon & Schuster Regalo, they think the buyership is different than the readership. They think the buyership is any grown-up, any adult who cares about a young adult, maybe at a life transition. They're coming out of middle school into high school. They're coming out of high school, they're going into college. They're coming out of college, they're going into the workplace, and they're a bit perplexed. And these are, crazy, challenging times to be young. So much of what our young people have been taught for, a decade in school, turns out, no, we're not doing that anymore. The country has pivoted in a new direction, and, get used to it. So I've tried to do a kind of user's manual for your life. And it's got all sorts, every chapter ends with an exercise and some things to think about, kind of a little précis of what you just read in that chapter. And what I have found, I bought 600 copies in order to give one to every, we call our students scholars in the First Star Academies. So they've all got their copies now. And I've been doing, Q&As face-to-face and on Zoom. And it seems that it's helpful. And who knows? It's published on June 10. It'll be on Amazon. Oh, the funny thing is it's also in a ton of bookstores. Simon & Schuster keep putting it in more bookstore chains. So, Barnes and Noble and so on. The latest one is with great glee. I told my family on the regular Sunday family Zoom, I said, your dad's book is going to be in Target. And there was a silence. And my witty young adult son said, where are they going to put? They're going to make one of those displays. And I said, yeah, I think they will. They'll stack the books up. He said, where are they going to put it? Between the condoms and the plastic spoons? I said, yes, I think that is, in fact, that is its natural place in the, with the best foot traffic. And I recorded the audio book, so that's available as well, and it's on Kindle. And there it is. I'm really glad I did it because I'm not getting any younger, and especially with the anecdotes, one memory led to another memory led to another. And I'm sort of glad. It feels like a milestone, I'm already working on, the publishers want another book. So I'm thinking, what will that be? And, but not writing it quite yet.
Well, I love all of that. And I want to let you know on a personal note that my wife and I are foster parents and adoptive parents. We have 4 that we have been blessed with over the years. And part of what we do is we go and speak and mentor at juvenile detention facilities, at foster care providers. And that is a huge passion of ours. So thank you for your direction and your focus.
We have to send you a crate of copies of Finding Happy, because I think you may have use for them.
Very much so. Very much so. I've got a question for you about the way your childhood was. What was discipline like in your family home when you were young?
I think I was, I was raised by my mother and father, both exceptionally brilliant, wonderful people. And I was raised with love. And what I learned looking back, and what I learned by seeing it missing in the lives of, hundreds of foster kids, if you do not have unconditional love, I don't know how you can thrive. I think it's like oxygen. And the cruelty, the petty cruelty that is inflicted on kids in the foster care system. I had lunch the other week with a young man during the residential, one of our academies. And I said to him, you seem to eat so much food. I've never seen so someone pile up it's all you can eat in the university commissary. I said, you seem to be always hungry. What's going on? And he said, well, I am always hungry because in my placement with the foster family, I always go to bed hungry. And I said, well, why? He said, well, because I can't get a snack. And I said, well, can't you just go to the fridge and, take something? And he said, no, they have a padlock on it. And I said, wait, time out. There is a padlock on the refrigerator in the foster home. He said, yeah. And I said, who have keys to the padlock? And he said, well, the couple who are the foster parents and their 2 children, they all have keys. I'm the foster kid. I don't get a key. So, and then, one of the things we do in First Star when the kids come into us in 9th grade is we give every one of them 2 things. We give them a laptop because you can tell who's a foster kid in school because they're the ones who don't have the technology. So they get a laptop. They're amazed that they get a brand new laptop in a box, and then they get lessons in how to use it safely and so forth. We also give them a rollerboard suitcase. And the reason we do that is that across the country, 2,200 different systems running foster care, the normal method of transportation that the kids are given, the social worker says, I'm coming to pick you up at 9:00 tomorrow morning to take you to a different placement. Why do I have to go to a new placement? Well, because we need this one and you're going to a different one. Well, where is it? Oh, it's about 20 miles away. Well, but I like it here. Well, sorry about that, but we have to move you. And they issue them to put their stuff in, clothes and, their poems and writings and this and that. They give them a trash bag. What is the lesson to your soul if
it teaches them that they're trash? That's right.
It teaches them that they're trash. And, they say in Silicon Valley in programming, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. If you feed garbage, you get garbage. And if, however, you create, and it's what we do in First Star, in conjunction with each of the universities, we build a family for kids who have been deprived of unconditional love and a family. The curriculum is 1/3 academics because they've all been to poor kids' schools, normally badly taught, usually below grade level. We turn that around. A university turns out to know a thing or two about teaching academics. But the 2/3 of the curriculum is life skills. Week 1, how to brush your teeth. Why don't they know how to brush their teeth at the age of 14? Well, because nobody took 20 minutes to show them. And then other life skills, sex ed. Sex is not love. Love is not sex. Let's discuss that. And then financial literacy. I've always wondered, what is the difference between a debit card and a credit card? Nobody ever taught them. So life skills. And then the last third is we build a family. We hire ex-foster youth who are thriving as undergraduates or occasionally a grad student, and we hire them and we pay them to be part of the staff that runs each of the academies. And it's a really good ratio. It's usually 3 or 4 of our students. We call them scholars. I'm the one who said, let's not call them students. Let's call them scholars. We can call them whatever we want. We're in charge. Right. Yeah. So our scholars, there's like 3 or 4 of them for every one of these youth coaches. And then, there's a full-time director, and every cohort of 30 students, there's a new assistant director. So that's who run these things. But that last third of the curriculum, you can argue it's the most important gift because we are making the circumstances where they build a family. So I can give you the one that made me cry, the example. So we had, not very long ago, we had a talent show for the 10th graders. So one by one, they're coming down on the stage in the Northwest Auditorium, and the audience is maybe 150 adults, hardly any of whom the kids know. And one by one, they're singing a song, or they're doing spoken word, or they're reading their poem, or a couple of them are doing some kind of dance. And down comes Catalina. And Catalina is, say, 15, I would say she was. And up comes the music, and she has the microphone, and she can't sing. And she's like a deer in the headlights. She's so awestruck by the circumstances and so frightened, she can't get the first note out. And now it gets worse because the music has left her behind. And then the music stops. And I can see out of my peripheral vision that the director of the academy is standing up in the audience, is going to go down and usher her off. And I'm thinking, this is no good. This is terrible what we've done. We've made this young lady's life worse by putting her in this situation. We're never going to do this again. I'd rather not have a talent show than crush someone like this. And then an amazing thing happened. And the adults didn't do it. Staff didn't do it. I didn't do it. So we're there kind of appalled. And in her cohort of 15-year-olds, 10th graders, there is a young man who he should be a linebacker. He is a big, tall, large young man. And he lumbers down there onto the stage, and he stands between us and Catalina, and we can't see her anymore. And there's some whispering. And then two young ladies in the same cohort, they go down. Now there's 4 of them. They're whispering. Now there's 8. Now there's 12. Now there's 20. And now there's all 30 kids are in a kind of scrum, whisper, whisper, whisper. And a hand comes up on the outside of the scrum, meaning turn the music on. And thank God they turned it on from the beginning. And invisibly comes the little voice of Catalina, kind of not very strong, still a bit haltingly, from the middle of the scrum. And she starts singing. And by the end of the song, she's belting it out. Sounds like Beyonce, honestly. And so it ends. Everyone stood up. Half the audience are crying, including me. And the kids didn't know what to do. They hadn't thought that through. So they came down off the stage with their arms around each other. And I had to go for a walk. I was so overcome. I thought, this is the secret sauce of First Star. We make the circumstances, and these kids who have been deprived of the oxygen of unconditional love, they made it for themselves. And what we see is when they leave us and they go off to college and they're scattered all across the country, they continue through the alumni program. They are best buds. And that those friendships, I think they'll carry on. You know, we've been doing it so long now. We've got lots of young professionals who are out in decent jobs. And, you know, we have grad students and people in medical school and people going to be lawyers and this and that. But they now have what in a good family we give our kids, which is unconditional love. So, you know, film producers know how to be ego struck enough to think that we can fix something, we can do something, we have the follow through, and we can, you know, usher it and lead it. So that's what First Star is.
One of the phrases that we often use as counselors and coaches on this end is meaningful movement makes the moments. And you guys do these meaningful things for months and years in these children's lives. And there's your moment. There's the moment where everybody on that stage got it. They understood what all the people behind them had been doing this whole time and wanting for them. What a beautiful story. I love it.
Well, I'm very proud of the work that you're doing, and I commend you for it. I wish there were more people who shared in your ambition.
Well, you know, I'm spoiled because I've got 7 of them up and running, and it works. So the reason you make a second film is because the first film did some business, and you make the 20th film because the 19th did some business. So you dare to do. And I think how, kids, underprivileged kids, are crushed by glass ceilings that they didn't create. One of the things I say to them in the mentoring, I say, think of it like you're sitting cross-legged in an envelope with a pencil in your hand, and it's dark in the envelope. You can choose just to sit there in the middle of the envelope, never amount to anything, don't take any risks, don't explore, don't experiment, or you can poke with the pencil. And sure, if you poke with the pencil, every so often you'll go through the envelope and you will say, whoops, and you'll pull it back. I will never be a concert pianist. But then you can go on a tangent into a different direction, and you can explore what is possible for you. And that is so much better and so much happier than just sitting cross-legged in the middle of the envelope and never amounting to anything. So I think daring to do. But the other thing is that if you want to find happy, there are 3 chapters in the book, one at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end, that are called The Meaning of Life, which is a bit pretentious. It's Meaning of Life Part 1, Part 2, and then Part 3. And sort of just to give it away, in the end, I think you can build a career and you can build you can get food on your table, you can earn money to pay the rent, and you can get a good job. And there's a lot in the book about how to do that. But I think happiness in the end comes from finding someone less fortunate than you and lifting them up. I think joy comes from helping somebody else. Could be a charity, could be an individual. We have a class which I invented in First Star, where in the first lesson I say, okay, I'm sitting there. We teach it in 10th and 11th grade. I say, okay, so you're walking down the sidewalk and there is an old lady fast asleep in rags lying in front of you. 3 choices: stop and put $1 under her arm. Second choice, stop, wake her up and give her the $1. Third choice, look the other way, walk straight on past, don't stop. And we explore why would each category make that choice. And it leads to a conversation about the golden rule. The golden rule is in 170 world religions in their scriptures. And it is the sense in the human heart of the need for social justice. You see an old lady who sleeps in a cardboard box, but you got the refrigerator. That's just not acceptable. Our heart is moved. And certainly if you're a film producer, you decide to do something about it. So then I say to them, what if someone was an atheist? Does that mean that they wouldn't give her $1? And they say, no. You could have compassion. You could have empathy. You don't have to believe in God to do that. And that leads to a whole conversation about the second law of thermodynamics. And usually in a class of 30 10th or 11th graders, there's like 2 kids who've ever heard of that. So what that says, it's the theory of entropy. If you, in any closed system, so a closed system is the engine in your car, it is a family, it is a planet. In any closed system, if you don't apply energy, if you just leave it alone, left to its own devices, it will rot. It'll turn to random chaos, nothingness. The family won't be a family anymore. The planet won't be inhabitable. Mass migration, unstoppable. as people seek to live somewhere where it isn't 138 degrees in the shade. And the engine on your car, if you don't oil it, it won't go round. It'll eventually creak to a stop. So then I say to them, okay, tomorrow's class, something truly remarkable is going to happen. There is a man who lives in Dallas who is one of our donors. He's a wonderful man called Mort. And Mort is giving each of you $200. And they say, we're going to get $200. And I say, no, you don't get to keep it. You're going to each write an essay between 300 and 400 words to whom or to what you wish to give it. And we're going to actually do it. And then a couple of weeks later, you're going to go back and we're going to see, did it work? Did the homeless guy buy the shoes, or did he buy a large bottle of cheap brandy? Because philanthropy doesn't always work. And we actually do it. Some of these little essays, I mean, I'll just tell you one. My name is Jose. I'm adding $10 of my own because that makes 210, which is 3 times 70. Down at the animal shelter, it takes $70 for them to not euthanize a dog. And I'm going to save 3 puppies. And the reason I'm going to do that is the last time I was down there, I looked into the eyes of a puppy that had been very badly beaten. And I saw my own eyes because I was very badly beaten as well. Love, Jose. Or how about this one? My mom is in prison. She did some bad things, and she will be in prison for another 2 years, 3 months, and 7 days. I know she hates the shampoo, so I'm going to put the money into her prison account so that she can buy better toiletries because I love her very much. You know? And
wow.
My observation, I've been teaching this for years now, and to several different classes in several different academies and in the UK. And the kids are all taller as a result of the class. They have a newfound confidence, a sense, I guess the psychologists would call it, of agency. And I see it after the class over the following months or the following couple of years. I see it come out. We came out of we had a Christmas party. Someone donated, a donor donated a rather posh restaurant. And so we had this bang up lunch with 2 cohorts. So 60 kids and alumni and donors and staff, and fine old time. And people made speeches with a microphone. So it ends and we come out on the sidewalk and the head waiter comes out and he says, what do you want me to do with the desserts? Because nobody had the desserts. They all had too much pasta. And I said, well, don't throw them away. What are they? He said, well, they're like little cupcake things. And I said, well, can you put them like in little paper bags or something? And he said, yeah, I can do that. So 10 minutes later, we're still standing on the sidewalk. The minor theme of First Star is we're always waiting for the vans. The vans are always late. The vans get lost. The vans are always awful. So we're still there, and out come a couple of waiters with big trays with these little paper bags, and all the kids got their cupcake to take back with them. And out of the corner of my eye, I see one of the kids, Michael, who is one of the more troubled kids, and he's like walking away from us. And I'm thinking, what is he doing, a runner? He's running, what is happening? And I'm getting ready to do something about it and ask one of the youth coaches to sort of run after him and get him back. And there is indeed some old fella lying on the ground and apparently asleep. And Michael goes up to him, does not wake him up, and puts the cupcake in its little paper bag in the crook of his arm, and then sidles back to us because he doesn't want to be noticed. And I thought, he was listening.
That's beautiful.
That is.
So you've accomplished a lot of things. You've touched a lot of lives, and you're creating quite a grand legacy. And I'm sure you're well aware of it. And this book is a concrete exemplification of that. Mm-hmm. And I can't show you enough gratitude for it. You've got a huge heart. And I'd like to ask you a question about yourself. May seem a bit odd, but do you consider yourself to be a success?
Well, one of the things I've had to learn because of this book being about to be published is I can't do the British false modesty thing. Oh, shucks, don't say that. I do think I'm a success because what I've done is I've tried to take on board, what I'm feeding to young adults, which is what is happiness. I think it is helping other people. I think of it as kind of a whole second life. We all have the life that we live, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, unfortunately. And then you're dead. And I don't know, do you get another life after that? No clue. Agnostic. But I think there is a second life, which is the sum total of everyone that you have helped, and then everyone that they helped, and that those ones helped.
That's your legacy.
Yeah.
And I think it's like ripples on a pond. And that second life, I think the great, wonderful thing about it is it never ends because you are in those people. You have helped make them who they are and what they do. And as those ripples go out across the pond, I think maybe that is eternal life. And it's also how you can make yourself astonishingly happy. The thing that makes me the most happy in First Star is that the young adults who have gone all the way through our 4 years of the high school program, and they've gone on and done 4 years or so as undergraduates, and they're either grad students or they've, we just celebrated alumni. We had one kid who just bought a house. I remember when he was a little scaredy cat 14-year-old. He bought a house, for goodness sake. And we got another one where he and his wife have just had 2 babies, twins, through IVF, which is very tricky to do. They must have wanted those babies very much. And I look at them and I think, oh, look, the pond has ripples. And it makes me greatly happy. And so, I don't think I should be doing the British thing. Oh, I don't know how to deal with you saying that. I think I am a success. And I think the success is through the success of the people that I've tried to help.
Absolutely. In that same vein of conversation, and obviously when you're dealing with these young people, they have typical young people fears. And one of the bigger fears is failure and the consequences of that. And obviously we're here as experienced men, but we'd like your take on how you have learned from setbacks and failures and how that has helped you actually reform your paradigm for success.
Well, I talk about that all the time. I say to them, in Silicon Valley, when a young entrepreneur goes out to get venture capital to start a new business, the venture capitalists who sit across the conference room table, they're not that interested in whether the entrepreneur has had previous successes. What they are most interested in is hearing them talk about where they failed and why they think with hindsight they failed and how they're not going to make those mistakes again. They talk about failures and, go back to the dark envelope where you've got the pencil. And if you poke it in enough directions, eventually it'll go through, whoops, and you'll realize I'm never going to be a flamenco guitar player. I can't be an engineer. I haven't got enough math to do it really well. But you'll pivot and you'll find another direction to move in. Failure is how we learn what success can be. None of us can be all things. If you're not an athlete, you're not going to be an athlete. Do it as a hobby, but you're never going to be in the Olympics. But that's okay, because maybe you are a chess prodigy, or you can dance up a storm, or you're an architect, or maybe you can heal someone and you'll be a nurse or a doctor. So the experimentation, it's another reason why going to college, not for everybody, 10, 11% of our scholars don't go to college. They go into the military, they become a police officer or a fireman or something else very worthwhile. One of the ones I talk about to that group a lot is I say, I'm a homeowner. Let me tell you, you should really check out becoming an electrician or a plumber, because they are so overpaid. I've never paid so much money to someone. I pay more per hour to the plumber who fixes our leak than the lawyer. And he went to school for a whole lot more years than the plumber. So there's nothing the matter with, a blue collar career, but wherever possible, especially for underprivileged kids who are carrying PTSD, they've been abused, they've been neglected, they don't really have a support base. I think that extra 4 years of runway to get themselves off the ground from ages 18 to 22, it's a great privilege to go to college, and it allows you to take off, because it's that extra bit of runway where you won't be homeless. You do have a community. I say to them, it's not just a T-shirt. You're on a ladder. And don't worry, because in the 4 years of the high school program of First Star, if you fall off, we'll put you back on the ladder. But in the end, you are the only person that can move your feet. When they get to the top and they go off to be undergraduates or whatever, we say, please come back. You're at the top of the ladder. Pull the younger kids up after you, it's a circle. And that is indeed, in many, many cases, what happens. And that's the joy and the happiness of it.
Well, that is amazing. And one of the greatest things that I've noticed listening to you describe your ventures throughout your journey is you are a perpetual mentor, and you seem to derive your fulfillment from instilling confidence. That really appears to be the overarching theme of your mission in life. You're imparting confidence into these kids who might have otherwise felt like trash.
Well, and what I've tried to put in the book is there are life hacks that will help you have confidence. Don't do your homework on the bus on the way to school on the last possible day. Do your homework when they give it to you. Get it off your shoulders. Do it at the beginning of the period that is allowed. I say to them, make yourself ask a question in every single class you ever attend. Why? Why would we do that? What if we don't have a question? Here's why you do it. Number one, by raising your hand, you will pump some adrenaline, and you will be much more alert, focused, and next, you will have to listen to what's going on with your best ears to work out what question to ask. Also, life hack, be the teacher's pet. You'll get better grades. And then there's another whole thing about how to be organized. I think one of the things that makes life bewildering for teenagers and young adults is it's very complicated. So there's a thing called a spider graph, which I've been doing since I was a teenager. Some teacher told me about it, where you draw a stick figure of yourself in the middle of a piece of paper, and then you radiate out lines, each of which goes to a bubble, which has something that's really bothering you. And then from each of those bubbles, you radiate out lines, each of which has a stick figure in it for a person who is part of bothering you. One line from the middle might be I'm being bullied. And then the bubble might have I'm being bullied by Harry. And then a line comes out from that. Who can I get to help me? What do I do about that? There's a whole chapter in the book about bullying and what do you do? By making one of these spider graphs, it kind of looks like a 360-degree radar display, where it goes around and around and around. You see the thing, and it enables you to deal with it in bite-sized chunks. And I've got all the spider graphs I've ever got. I'm looking at them. They're in books that go back to 1968 or something. I mean, like I have endless spider graphs. And of course, that's another merit of them is if a decade after the spider graph was a picture of the horrors of your life, you look back 10 years later and you think, well, that was a stupid one. And that one didn't matter. And this one, I cracked that one. And I hadn't thought of that one, and so on and so forth. So it gives you sense memory looking backwards into your checkered life. And I think you are better, a chess player remembers their moves.
Right.
When they come upon the same situation, they think, oh, well, I know what I did last time. I can do the so-and-so gambit.
Right.
And that's a great benefit. And I think, I say to them, you don't have to read the book from the beginning through the middle to the end. You can if you want. It's 350 pages. But what I think is the sensible way for a young person to use the book is to look in the table of contents and just run your finger down and say, oh, well, that's interesting. How do I work out how to deal with a teacher who I think hates me? I'll read that one.
Right.
How do I find love? That's a biggie. And what we did, it's amazing because I have the spatial design ability of a newt. In fact, that's kind of rude to newts. But I did the first version of the cover of the book, and I knew we got to put the title and we got to put the log line. What I know now that I wish I knew when I was 18, or it ended up being how to find happy in a dizzying world. But right. I also wanted these words. I went through and worked out what is this book about. And right. The more I talked about an issue, the bigger I made the font. And so those words are what the book is about. And then when the publisher steamed in, they liked the concept, but they got a graphic designer who actually knew how to be a graphic designer, who said, we don't have to have the whole word. You don't have to have the whole of the word social media. Just put the word social. And you don't even need the L of social and so forth. So that its health is in there. You don't need the entirety of the word. So I think kind of subliminally, what I'm hoping happens when the book is on display in some bookstore or somebody peers at it on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com, I hope that what is bothering the young adult jumps out and they say, oh, well, I have to find love because it's driving me crazy. How do I do that? There's a whole chapter about where and how to find love. And it's got my own experience in it, in finding my wife. And there's a lesson in that. After I helped, my cousin and I helped one seriously ill child, and we brought him from London to Disneyland, and they stayed in my apartment, and his mum and he and my cousin, and, we did 2 weeks of what you shouldn't do with a dying child. And he went home and he died. Sean was his name, Sean Honorati. And I was very much taken by how straightforward it was to give him that joy. and things I hadn't previously thought about, like we made his mum happy. And when Sean died, his mum, Brenda, had pictures and memories of him having happy moments and not her child passing away with a tube up his nose in a hospital bed. And I called a meeting. You know, it's what do film producers do? We call meetings. We're the generalists who stand at the end of the table and say, hi, what would you think of doing this same thing? Let's find ill children and make them happy. You know, there must be a bunch of them in children's hospitals. Maybe we could do it 4 or 5 times a year. So the Starlight Children's Foundation, all these years later, we've raised and spent well over $1 billion with a B. But I knew in that first meeting, you know, one of the things producers do is you cast a meeting. What do I need? I need a lawyer. I need an accountant. I need a bookkeeper. I need a publicist. I need someone who understands the politics of hospitals. I need an organizational guru. And so I invited these various people. And it was back when I was single, I had one date with this gorgeous young lady. And I remembered that she had said she was an accountant. And I phoned her up and I said, it's me, Peter. I'm so sorry. I haven't phoned you. I've been out of town and, you know, BS. And I said, I'm having a meeting for this new charity idea I've got. Would you please come? Because I really need an accountant, which is kind of rude to have said that. But she did show up. And when the lawyer said, okay, so I've got to incorporate it, I've got to get a 501c3, he said, what do you want to call it? And I said, I haven't given that any thought at all. What do we want to call it? And it was the young lady, the accountant, who said, you know that children's rhyme, starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight, I wish I may, I wish I might have this wish I wish tonight. Why don't we call it the Starlight Children's Foundation? And we all said, yeah, that's fantastic. And I had a graphic designer there who said, I can see how to create a logo. It's a child reaching for a star. And we said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. We'll put it on the letterhead. And so that was the beginning of Starlight. And that was the second date with the accounting lady. And we did a Christmas party at County USC Medical Center that Christmas, a few months later. And we had a live band, and there was one little girl who was so ill that they had to wheel her in her hospital bed, and she couldn't get out of the bed. And all the kids were dancing, but she was in bed, but she danced in bed. And we had these life-sized adult animal costumes. They had been donated to us by SeaWorld, and one of them was a dolphin. And it had like a grill in its chest for the adult inside to look out and see where they were going. Yeah. And I looked into the grill, which had the accounting lady inside it. And I saw that she was looking at the kid dancing in the hospital bed. And the lady inside the dolphin, all her mascara had run. And I went, oh, I think I love this person. So anyway, we got married, and she's the mother of my children, and she's still an accountant. So there you go.
That is beautiful.
That is.
Mr. Samuelson, I have to tell you, we've done hundreds of interviews, right, with our podcast, and we've interviewed hundreds of people. And I will say you have been the least work for us. You are a great storyteller. You are you're very well practiced and very good at giving your heart. And I can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure to hear your life's journey, your mission, and to hear your vision translated from you into all of the ventures that you are manifesting it into. It really is. It's beautiful. And I am proud to be able to showcase you, your book, and everything that you've done and are doing with our Pursuit of Purpose podcast. We have drawn towards the end of our time with you, and I don't want to go too far and take too much of your time. I know you're a busy man. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you want to tell us or tell our audience?
Ask me one other thing I want from the book.
What other thing do you want from the book?
The publisher thinks I'm completely mad. I put my email address in the book.
Okay.
They think I'm mad because they say, what are you going to do? You could have 80,000 emails. And I said, I don't know. I'll read as many as I can. I'll hire 3 people to help me and we'll somehow respond and so forth. I'm very eager to have wide feedback. I didn't put the email address at the beginning or at the end. That was too easy. I've sort of buried it in the book. You have to find it.
So are you putting is it going to be in the audio version as well?
Yes,
Nice.
I made sure it was there. I just have to tell you, there's a man called Adam Morse, one of the more remarkable resilience stories amongst my friends. Adam Morse is a British film director.
Okay.
And he is blind.
Wow.
And I dedicated the audiobook to Adam Morse.
Well, we are audiobook consumers.
Yes.
And I personally am looking forward to consuming your book in its audio form.
Yes, likewise.
I do want a copy. If I could be so bold as to request one, I want one signed from you so that I can display it here in our studio.
I'm happy to do that. Send me an email with the address and we will get you one. It'll be one off that little pile there. You'll have the top.
That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. And this has been great. I mean, I'm sort of moved by the questions, and you do me honor. And out there, the great world, listening, watching, the pursuit of happiness is the purpose of life. I say in the book, short-term happiness, chocolate ice cream. Medium-term happiness, chocolate ice cream often. Long-term happiness, go help someone else.
So in keeping, yes, and I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. In keeping with tradition, we have a final a question that we always ask our guests. And I think you'll appreciate it when you hear it. It's intended to inspire and help people transform themselves into whatever pursuit that they are built to pursue. But before I ask that question, Chuck, is there anything that you'd like to ask?
I'd like to just make a comment or a compliment. Thank you for being an example of service to others, to humans, to us. And yes, and we definitely try to encourage people, whether it's young people we talk to or folks who are maybe a little older, say if you haven't yet or so inclined, go find somewhere where you can serve. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be 1 or 2 things that are just important to you. It may turn into something bigger, but it is your give back. And please find a give back and then pursue it. That is your thing for the rest of your life. And Rob and I both have individual things that we do. We probably started them even before our friendship. So it's neat to keep those things alive. And your passions, but definitely your stories about your passions have really set the bar. And I hope that a lot of folks become inspired by listening to this interview. And I know that they will. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So my final question for you, if you could go back in time and give yourself, your younger self, some profound advice, let's say about 16 or 17 years old, the young Peter Samuelson, if you could just whisper it in your own ear, that's all you could do, what might you say to your younger self?
I think I would have studied something different, not medieval English literature, in university, because I look back, and the reason that I did that is because Mr. Lund told me to. And it was his special area. And so I did what he said. And my dad, an amazing, magnificent father, but he didn't know anything about post-secondary education. He'd never been, left school at 14. So I think I could have taken a trajectory professionally. Maybe I should have done economics, or studied politics, or studied sociology, or possibly have studied the law. I think it would have been a different life, and it, I'll never know now. But I've done fine. It's been very good studying English literature in helping me to be a much better film producer, because you're constantly comparing this version of the script with that version of the script. What is the difference, and what doesn't make sense here? And it's comparative literature, about which, I've always known a lot since college.
Yeah.
But I think I could have been a different kind of leader, possibly in politics, in government, possibly as a sort of people's advocate, in court. I think I could have been either a prosecutor or a defense attorney. And I would love to have been able to explore that, but it's kind of a binary. You can't do that, half-heartedly. You either study, pass all the exams and do it, or you don't. And I didn't, and I did something else, which has been incredibly valuable to me and maybe a bit for the world. But that would be, it's not really even a regret. It's a curiosity of what might have been if I had studied something different in college.
Well, I think Shakespeare appreciates what you did. His sentiment about lawyers said all that needed to be said. And I think you went the direction that caused you to be able to be an enormous blessing to the entire world. And the legacy that you're creating, just like you said, is creating ripples that will never stop. So
well, I get to hire lawyers. So I guess by proxy, I have tons of lawyers. I must be one of the best employers of lawyers around. So, it all worked out fine.
I think so. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. Thank you for allowing us to showcase your story, for sharing everything, sharing your heart with us and our audience. It's been a great pleasure and honor. Very much so.
Thank you, and gentlemen.
I don't know if you knew this or not, but you and this episode are going to be our very first of a momentous kind. This episode is our very first post 1 million download episode. So while we speak, our program has crossed the 1 million download mark. So once we release yours will be the first one published after the 1 million downloads on our podcast.
I'm so honored. And also, can I just say, pattern recognition in my life, sometimes things are meant to be. And I think maybe a book called Finding Happy should have been your 1 millionth download, and vice versa.
Well, I am anxiously awaiting to be able to consume the audio version, and I'm excited to be able to read the print version as well. And I'm thrilled. Thank you for allowing us to showcase you. And is there anything else that you'd like to leave our audience with before we close?
No, just think about the pond and the ripples on the pond. Ask yourself if you are happy. And if the answer is, well, not really, then do a spider graph and work out why. And the delta, the difference between what you want and what you have.
Right.
That becomes your agenda going forward. And don't take no for an answer. All the good things that have happened to me happened because of people who said no twice before they said yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Well, that's very profound. So we're going to leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you for allowing us to become a part of the pursuit of your purpose. I'm Rob.
I'm Chuck.
And today we've had the distinct honor and privilege of hosting
Peter Samuelson.
Yes. And I hope you will go out and order his book, Finding Happy.
It's all over the place, but I'll tell you where all the links are to all the bookstores and online and whatnot, and the different versions. Samuelson.la. So www.samuelson.la.
Perfect.
Simple as that.
All
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.